Hello, everyone. Welcome. Now, we were going to have this stream on Wednesday, but that was a holiday, so we had to reschedule it for Thursday. We're going to be covering depth, and we're going to be using the fantasy battle map style to do that. Been really looking forward to this. People have been asking me, like, how is it that I create multiple levels, create this illusion of depth on the battle map, on their battle maps, because it seems kind of flat. And so this will kind of help to go through on how to make these multiple levels, kind of like this map right here. We're going to recreate this. I'm going to show you how that I put this together, how I decide how many tiers or how many levels there is, how I'm going to use contrast, blur, or whatever it might be to kind of create this illusion of depth. So I'm super excited about that. So first, if you haven't already, go check out our stream request on Canny. I'm going to be providing some links in the chat here shortly. So go join our stream request for Canny, because if you don't see the kind of streams that you want to watch on the channel, you can go ahead and go to that link, click it, and then feel free to leave some suggestions. All right. So I'll go ahead and just fill this in here. As well as there's going to be another link in the chat that's for the mechanized castle. And that's the map that I made before, but we're going to be basing future ones off. So just go ahead and check that out. If you want to use this map for your own personal use in a campaign or whatever, feel free to use that. And I'll likely be making several of these in a series. So there'll be like a mechanized castle entrance, maybe a mechanized gatehouse, all those kind of things. So, but we'll be recreating this and kind of showing how depth works. So let's go ahead and jump in. I think enough people have kind of filtered in. So let's just get started here. I'm going to be using the portrait aspect ratio instead of the landscape. And as always, I like to turn on that grid. I use that as a scale guide, as well as I can use the snap to grid option for lines and for shapes. That's going to be really, really helpful. I'm going to just switch it to 15 right here. So it's kind of a nice, easy grid here. And this is quite large. Not massive, but it's a decent size. And what we'll do is you're going to use the shape tool to kind of create the various levels that you want to create. And what I'll do is I'll start with the largest shapes first. And I usually use large shapes that kind of create a courtyard or cordon off on a space because I want to create this illusion of framing. So we'll use the shape tool. I'm going to switch over to stamp for the stroke. I'll open that up and just choose one that I want. I kind of like this castle wall right here. This will work really well. And then you can leave it as it is, or you can desaturate it, or whatever it is you want. You can change the color for it. I'll just leave it as. And I'm going to also switch fill, use a texture. And then I'm going to pick a texture that I want for the fill. And since these kind of has a similar color palette to each other, this works out well. And I'm going to use the pen to create this shape. And I'll use the snap to grid. If you just go down, whenever you have a line or shape or something selected, there'll be a snap to grid option down there. Click that. And now everything will kind of snap to the grid. And that way you'll be able to recreate shapes more easily. So what I'll do is I want to create this kind of horseshoe shape that's going to use to encompass the shape. So let's take a look at this so you can kind of see it here. So we'll create the highest parts first, and I'll move my way down. So let's go ahead and create the first shape right here, 2 across. And I want to make sure there's enough room. 1 up here, go across. And you just remember you're using the grid. So I see 4 there, so we'll go 4 across here. And just use the grid as a guide. And I'll just push these parts of the walls off screen so you can't see them. There we go. Press enter and go add. And so you'll see the first part of the shape there. And what I might want to do is I want to flip it a little bit. I want the railing, that kind of gray part, to be on the inside. So I can always just click right here where stroke is and just flip it. And then this way it's on this side. Now what's really nice is I can kind of move it if I feel like it's not big enough, or adjust it. So we'll just use this first shape right here, and this will be some multiple levels. I'm even going to change the stamp scale because it seems a little big. There we go. That fits about right. So that looks good. And then the next step is you want to create the levels that are going down. And so what I'll do is I want to make sure it goes down a layer. So you just go to your layer, go down one. I'm going to turn merge shape off. I don't need merge shape. And I'm going to create several platforms, which I'll adjust later. So we'll create the first one here. And then we'll create another one right here. Okay, and we'll push that down another layer. Okay. Now the thing is that right now you see it seems kind of flat because we're all using the same brightness. There's no contrast. There's no way of knowing what is the thing that's high up and the thing that's further down. We're going to get to that part first. What you do is you create all the platforms, all the levels first, and then you'll adjust the walls and the fill of each one of those shapes to that way it creates contrast. So let's just finish up first. So I'm going to go ahead and use the shape again, and I'll use this shape. And let's just put it right here, right here. This way we have this kind of nice shape right here, like this. Let's move it out of the way so it doesn't show up on the screen. There we go. And you're going to go to add. And then, there you go. Another shape that looks good. Let's take it back. One, I think this should look good right there. Let's take a step back. Line it up with the grid. There we go. Okay. And we'll make sure this goes up a layer. There we go. Okay, so we're slowly kind of getting the shapes together. Let's create the last couple shapes. Like we want to create a bridge, and then maybe this arced half circle right here, which will connect those two sides. So those are like the entrance that you go inside, outside, you take that arched bridge, go into the center, and then go up into the rest of the castle here. So let's go back to that and look at this. It's looking all right. We're not going to replicate it perfectly, but we're just going to give you the ideas on how I put together the shapes. Let's do the next part, which is I want to make like a half circle. So what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and just select everything and just lock it, and then I'm going to end up turning on merge shape, because I want to be able to mess with this a bit. So what I'll do first is it's snap to grid. That's perfect. And I want to create a perfect, kind of a perfect circle. So I can just go ahead and hold the shortcut key like this. That one's perfect right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose the shape again. And then I'm going to do preview. Find the center of this. And then you can go subtract. That looks good. And I'm going to flip to the walls on this, because you can see the walls are a little off here. So we'll go ahead and just flip. And then the next step is we're going to subtract half of the circle to get rid of it. So just go subtract. There's half of it there. And then we're going to push it down so it's below. And we can resize it so that it kind of fits onto here, like that. Okay, that looks good. And I'm going to change the scale this down a little bit to show that's like that. There we go. Okay, I think the shape is kind of there. We could push things up a little further up if you want to. You can go ahead and unselect everything. And you can push it higher up if you want to get more of the arch, or like this. You can resize it too. For now, I think this will work just fine. Okay, so now that we've done all that, now we can start playing with the height thing. And so what we'll do is this top one is the highest level, and I'm not going to do any adjustments to it. That's just going to be the highest point, and we're going to leave it at 100% brightness of both the texture and the stamp that we're using for the stroke. So I'll just lock it so I don't select it, because we're done with that. But here, we're going to change some things. We're going to change the brightness of this one, and we'll change it to 90. And then we're also going to do the same thing with the brightness of the texture. And in fact, I'll bring it down just a little bit more. Let's go to 85. So 15 intervals on the brightness for the fill, and then a 10 difference And you might want to do more too. It might be change as you go. So let's select this one and then we'll lock it because we've kind of done that. Let's do this next one. We'll bring the brightness down even more. The objective is to make it noticeably darker than the level that's above it, so that way the level above pops out because it's brighter. The trick is contrast. So we'll make that even darker, and then we'll do the same thing with the texture. Bring the brightness down. It has to be noticeably darker than the level above it, and then we'll get to some of the shadowing and everything. Now we have to do it all over again. So we'll bring the brightness down even more, and then bring the brightness down here. There we go. Okay, so it seems kind of clear that there's a difference. I'm going to do the same thing with this. This is actually down below. But what's cool is since I've made adjustments, I can just select that within the recently used and it kind of does it for me. So super easy, super cool. There we go. Let's take a step back and kind of look at it. So you kind of got the levels part done. And you kind of get where the depth is coming in. So from here, I also want to show like access, but I also want to show that bridge. So let's do that real quick. So we'll use the same texture here, the same shape. It's set to snap to grid. We're going to add. And in fact, we are going to turn merge shape off. And let's actually bring it up a little bit bigger. Add, there we go. I want to make sure there's enough walking space. And then I'll just kind of bring it down a layer. And then I'll put stairs where they overlap. So a nice little trick there. Or you can just do an opening. You can do that too, but I'm just going to use a stair to hide it. I see some right here. That's perfect. Or you can use some with railing. It's up to you. So we can, all you have to do is just kind of fit it right in the proper spot. Now I'm going to turn snap to grid off because I want to be able to fine tune where it goes. And then I'm going to also change the blend mode to luminosity. Turn the shadow off because I want to be able to catch whatever the texture is beneath it. So luminosity. And then I'm going to change the brightness. Change the contrast a little bit. And that way it kind of matches in. So there, that staircase works there. And another one right here. So staircase is kind of going up onto this bridge right here. I think overall that looks good. It's all the right brightness. This should probably be a little bit darker, but that's okay. But you're kind of getting the general idea of how that works. And we also want to create the staircases kind of leading up to the next level. And I'll bring the brightness up just a little bit. Copy, paste. Put another one right here. Copy, paste, another one over here. And we'll change the brightness on these. There we go. Okay. So you're kind of getting the general idea. And then we'll create another one, another staircase kind of going up to here. So it kind of matches with the idea that there are stairs with multiple levels. Because the one trick to show multiple levels is to add staircases. Having lots of stairs is a way to kind of show multiple levels. Now, here you could even change a little, make this a little bit darker in these sections right here, but I think just a couple steps should be okay. And we'll actually use a longer shape here because I want to show that there's quite a bit of depth change going down here. Okay, let's take a step back and just see, make sure that we have all the access points. Access has been put together. Let's also create just a couple more fun little staircase stuff. So we'll put another staircase, just a thin little staircase here, copy, paste. Another one here. Not following the design perfectly. We'll use the same thing here. Make sure the merge shape is off. Snap to grid. Oopsie. There we go, snap to grid. Nope. Set it to add, there we go. Change the stroke size. It's snap to grid. We'll create another little shape. Oopsie, not wanting to work here. There we go. I think it needs to be at the right layer. Yes. There we go. And we'll change the fill size. or not the fill size, the stroke size. Here we go. A little too big. There we go. And I'm just going to turn snap to grid off, and I can just reuse this. Copy, paste. Another one right here. And here's a staircase kind of going up. And it seems a little dark, so we'll bring the brightness up. There we go. Okay. I do want it to kind of stick out a little bit more here. There we go. So you got this nice staircase kind of going up to these next levels. Let's turn the grid off for now. It's nice to kind of take a look at it and just see how it looks so far. And I think I'll make the background black just so that you can kind of see a little bit more depth here. We're at 70 changes. We'll just kind of keep it here. Oh, so glad that you can kind of make it to the stream. We might change up the stream schedule a little bit in the summertime because of heat, and then also just to make more convenient hours for people. So I know people have to work and stuff. Okay, so now that we've kind of put all that together, you've got the general idea. We could also put some staircases in here. And one cool thing we could do is that we want to, if I want the stair to show underneath the walls, but not underneath the texture, then we want to change the layer offset of the texture. I'll bring it down quite a bit. And if I drop this down, you'll be able to put a staircase, some stairs right there. So you can copy, paste. This way you kind of add just an extra level of dimension. Remember that trick to showing multiple levels is height, is staircases, stairs. They really help to kind of show that there is a depth change. These staircases show that there's a change. So that's very helpful. Just remember just to bring the layer down of the fill. And then this way you kind of have, you know, not just this. And we could also use the top layer brush to kind of fill in the rest of the stuff here. So let's see where we are. We're at 17 minutes. We're moving real fast with this. So we're doing good. Let's go do the painting part so I can kind of show you how I show the extra level of depth. You'll kind of notice that even though there is contrast to show that there is some height differential, it still doesn't look like the levels are still separated from each other. And so this is where I start using the brush tool, top layer, black, and I always bring it to about 30% or so. And what we'll do is just where the edges will create what's called ambient occlusion, and it's just the shadow. And so what I'll do is I'll start with the bottom layer and just kind of move my way up. So as you can see right here, let's go ahead and bring the size up a little bit more on this one. We'll put a little shadow right here. What I'm trying to do is not get it on top of the wall, but just right next to the wall. And you see that already it kind of adds a little bit of shadow there. Let's do the same here. Just go to the staircase, and then we'll also go across here. And you'll start to see now, we'll go over here too. Go across, and you'll start to notice that it kind of leaves an impression of a shadow, this ambient occlusion, just letting you know that there is a height differential. So nice little touch there. Do across, oopsie, not doing straight there. Go here like this. And already you can see that it's starting to create this illusion of a shadow kind of going up. And so we'll keep doing that. We'll go here, inside of here, all along this wall, all along this wall. And just remember, what you don't want to do is cover the wall part. You just want to put it right on the outside of it. Let's put another layer down here. Here we go. And you'll start to see that it kind of makes it pop out a little bit. So we've done the initial. So now let's add a little bit darker ambient occlusion. So I'll go up to 50 and we'll bring the size way down. And then we're just going to paint just around the edges. And this takes a few moments, but it's okay. Just be patient. Put it around this edge. And this is going to be that hard ambient occlusion edge that should make it pop out. And of course, if it's too thick, if you feel like 50-something% is too thick, then you can always change it. But you can see the difference already. It starts to pop out. We can bring it down a little bit more if you feel that's a little too thick. Let's go to maybe 40. Let's do that instead. And you just got to follow the staircase. Now I'm using a pen, but you can use a mouse. I've done it before. Now this is the time consuming part, but if you really want to create the illusion of depth, it is going to take a little bit of time. It's not as simple as just a couple clicks, done. You know, that's just the way it is when you're kind of putting together the map. I'll just do this side as well. We're going to do pretty much every single one. This is going to take a little bit of time. Don't forget to overlap even over the walls on this side. So when I go in here, I'm not stopping. I'm covering up that wall as well. Here we go. We'll put it by along the edge of the staircase as well, so it pops out more. And this is really, these techniques really are the way to kind of do it. The contrast to show the depth, and then painting in your shadows to really make it pop out. So already you can see the parts where the dark lines are, they pop out a lot more than the walls that don't have that dark line. So kind of a trick there. So I started out with the overall, a thicker shadow that was a lower opacity, but at least it kind of created this difference between the wall and the floor beneath it. And then you create a thicker, smaller one that's a hard edge. And then that way, it kind of creates this illusion of depth. So kind of a nice little trick. And the thing is with the top layer, this is just kind of a disclaimer here that the top layer is even above filters. And so you'll just have to either change the blend mode or not use filters, because sometimes the shadow might look really odd because it's not affected by the filter. Or if you're using a color filter and you're using like cold, warm, warm, cold, whatever it might be, red sky, just make the shadow work the same color. So if you're doing cold, warm, which is a kind of a purplish color, use a really dark purple color for shadowing so that way it will match with that filter. Same thing with red sky. Use a kind of diluted red color for your shadowing so that way it's still affected, or it looks like it's affected by the filter. Okay, we're almost there. Let's add in the dark shadows here. And we're almost there. We're getting there. Okay. So if we take a step back at it and we look at it, you'll see that that hard line really made everything just pop out. Remember how flat it was before? And then we added the contrast. The levels that are highest are the highest. I started at just 100%, their default settings. And then as I went down each level, I brought the brightness down of the wall and the fill texture that I chose, and I brought them down incrementally. Now it's okay, it doesn't have to be a perfectly formulaic where it's 10, 15, 20. It's just, it has to be to where whatever the brightness or darkness is, it has to be starkly or at least noticeably different than the layer above it. So you don't want to accidentally have two of the levels be of the similar brightness or darkness to where it doesn't look like there's a difference between the two. So just remember that secret and use the shape tool, because otherwise you'd have to paint all of this stuff on, and you know, you won't be able to paint on top of it very well because these are using a fill. But you can always use filters to add more artifacts and effects to the map, and that way you don't have to do all this extra painting. So just kind of keep that in mind here. So overall, I think this looks kind of nice. I might change some of the shapes, but I think overall this looks good. Get the idea here, and we'll just go ahead and decorate some stuff. And I'm going to turn the grid back on, and I'll show you kind of a neat little trick that I use for kind of creating an interesting texture or creating different decorations on the floor. And so what we'll do is we'll use the pen. We're going to use a color. We're going to use black. And what I'll do is I'll make sure it's set to snap to grid. And I want to create like a design on the floor. And so this is pretty easy to do. You just snap to grid. Press enter. We're going to make sure that goes up a layer. And I'm going to bring the opacity down. You can copy and paste whatever you make and flip it. Like just like that. Copy, paste. I can flip things around if I want. You can kind of create these interesting kind of shapes using snapping to the grid. And this is what I like to do, is just kind of create these interesting shapes. So the floor isn't just this pure cobblestone floor. There's some design within the flooring, And you can just do that with very simple line work. You don't have to do anything kind of crazy, just some simple lines, snap to grid, and then use them to kind of create some interesting angles. So kind of a neat little trick that you can kind of use. And to make sure that you keep it symmetrical, you can just copy, paste it, and flip it. So you can kind of keep that shape. Now you can, yeah, I think that just looks good right there. Let's add in a couple more shapes in the center there, just to kind of fill it in. There we go. And, you know, there's all kinds of fun little tricks that you can kind of do here. You could make it the room tool and change the color. So if you wanted to, you could make it to where I want to have a fill. So I'll go over to up here, make sure it's set to room. And it has this fill right here. But I can make it maybe just a little bit brighter so it kind of pops out to show there's an extra layer of depth. So I'm going to show you another trick to creating floor design that has a little bit of depth here. So what I'll do is make sure that I have the right texture, and I'm just going to bring it up just a little bit. Let's go to 70, and then I'll go ahead and just go right on here like this, just to make sure. Press enter. We're going to add it. I'm going to bring it up a layer. Let me see, is it set to a lower opacity? Yes, it is. My bad. There we go. And let's change the brightness of the texture so that it kind of pops out more. So I'll go over here, hit brightness. There we go. So it seems just a little bit brighter, as you can see. Bring it up to 80. I think that should be good. So it shows a little bit of a difference in it. And then you can use the shape tool to follow the design that you created like this. Go to add, and then this way you have some extra level, and you just copy, paste it, right? What's a great thing about this? You can just copy and paste the whole thing, flip it. Let's go, where is the flip option here? Flip it, there we go. And just put it right on there. Same thing, we'll do it again. We'll put one right here as well. Oopsie, my bad, wrong one. I was using the line instead of a shape. Go to enter, add, and this looks a bit brighter, so I can bring the brightness down probably a little bit. Let's just use that previous one, and it still kind of pops out a little bit. Same thing, we'll do it again. We'll go right here and kind of just fill it in, enter, add. Perfect. We're going to copy, paste, flip it again. All right, so now you have some like various shapes. It doesn't just look like a flat ground. So creating maybe some kind of lips or some crannies within the ground with a decoration is easier than you think. Create the decoration, use the shape tool to decorate it more. And we'll do the same thing up here too. I want to create various levels of depth. So I'll just do that again up here, and I can kind of choose a design that I want to create here. So just go in here like this, and it doesn't have to be like a perfect design. It can be as simple as just a simple shape. Maybe I just want to put it right there. Copy, paste. There we go. But it's a little too dark, so let's go with something a little bit brighter. Let's go even brighter with that. Let's go up to here. There we go. Perfect. And then I can just copy and paste and kind of use these as well. So if I feel like I can create more space, but I want to also kind of create this illusion that there's a little more than that. So let's create some other angles that aren't completely perfectly 90-degree angles. So copy, paste, put this one over here. Put this one right here. And let's move this down one. There we go. Let's move this down one. There we go. Copy, paste. There we go. Okay. So now you have the various kind of shapes. Let's turn that grid off so you can see what that looks like with the shapes. So now you have some unique, interesting designs in there that you can kind of go with. Okay, let's go ahead and just put another one up here. We'll bring it up a layer, and I'm going to push it this way. And then we're going to change the shape on this. Actually, let's go ahead and make this. Let's do a little trick here. Let's take a step back. Let's save first. Should always save. All right, how much time do we have? Oh, perfect. So we've done so much. You kind of see how much you can do in just a short period of time. It's just following a process. The process is, you can work your way up or work your way down. I like to work my way down because if the texture and the fill are 100%, then I should make my way down and then drop incrementally. But you could do whatever way you want. It's just less work because starting from the bottom means changing all of that right away. So for me, it's just the highest point first, change it's at 100%, and then I'll bring down percentages on that layer. So just remember that trick. Okay, let's just go ahead and throw in some real quick details. Just real quick details so you can kind of see what we're going to be doing here. Let's go ahead and just use one of these and I'll edit it a little bit. I'll change it up. And we're going to use the nodes. I use nodes when I want to change things. So I can just go ahead and just select this, push that, click. This will kind of create a more diamond shape. And what I'll do is I'm going to turn this into a hole where a gear comes out of. And so what I'll do is I'll use this texture right here called gear right here. That works perfect. And then I'll bring the brightness down on it a little bit because I want the gear sticking out to be brighter. Remember, this is the trick, depth, contrast. So if I bring the brightness down on this, that way it's further down there. And maybe I don't want to use a line. Maybe I want to use a stamp this time. So I can use something like this. Bring it way down. Let's turn the shadow off because it doesn't need to have a shadow on it. And then I'll put a gear right there. So I'll go into the catalog, type in gear. And I'm going to use this wooden one, which I don't want it to look like it's made of wood. So what I'll do is I'll change the hue a little bit, change the saturation, bring the brightness up a little bit, bring the contrast up, and we'll put the gear right there in the center. So it looks like the gear is sticking out. And then I'll obviously want to put something that kind of connects the gears together. So we can use this right here. We'll turn the shadow off. I'm going to put it down a layer so it's below. And these are going to be kind of where the wheel, where the gear connects to, like this. There we go. Perfect. And then I can go ahead and just group it, create group. And then I can kind of just put this wherever I want and then copy and paste it. So let's go ahead and just copy, paste, put this over here because it's a mechanized castle. So I kind of want that. And what's really cool is I can just scale it down and make a smaller one that goes right here. So if you want to have multiple, you can. It's just 2 gears like this. And that kind of fills up that top layer where it's supposed to be like machinery and stuff. So nice little trick there that you can do. And if you feel like there's just not enough shadowing, you can just add in more shadows. But I think overall, this is good. We'll throw in some real quick details here and then we'll call it good. I'm going to make an arch. And since gold is within the yellowish color of this kind of the color that I'm using for this stuff, so if I just bring the saturation down a little bit, it should bring it to the roughly the same kind of color. And then what I'll do is I'll just, to give it more arch, I'll use a hot white heart bar. Now those white bars right there will only show up if you're at 0% or 0 degrees. So just kind of know that. And then I'll flip and then place them right here. And just to create that extra layer of depth, this arch kind of makes it look like there's an extra layer there. So throwing in some arches over the entranceways is a great way to throw another level of depth. Copy, paste, just wherever those are. Let's put another one right here. There we go. Let's take a step back and look at it. So you kind of see these arches kind of look nice here. That looks good. You guys are getting the general idea. And when you want to throw on you look at these textures and they're really kind of the same texture. You could change things up if you wanted to. So if you want, you could like take this whole thing. Let's take this big one right here. Is it locked? Let's unlock everything. Let's take the biggest one right here and we can change the fill scale because this is so much higher up. Let's change the scale of the texture so where it's higher up, right? Then let's do the next level up here and we'll bring the fill scale up just a little bit more, but you don't want it to be the same as the texture above, right? Let's go up here and bring this texture quite a bit higher up. And that's the beauty of using the shape tools. You can adjust the texture. Instead of using the add mode and then retexturing it every time, using the shape tool will allow you to edit the fill any way that you want. So we'll do that. So we have that, and then we go down to the next level, which is this one, and we'll bring the fill scale up just a little bit more. And then we can kind of leave the rest as is, I think. So it should be big enough so you can see the difference between the one at the top, big, mosaics, a little bit smaller, and then even smaller as you go down. So kind of a nice little trick there to show depth. In fact, I'll just go extreme and just go a little bit bigger so it can really show the height differential. We'll select the next one, do it again, really bring the fill. Let's go ahead and lock this so I don't accidentally select it. Grab the big one, bring the fill up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, now there really is quite a difference between them, as you can see. So that works out really, really well. All right, and now if you feel like you need to add texture, one of the best things is to use a texture filter. And in the parchment world style, there is this old paper. And what old paper will do, you have to change the blend mode, and you should change it to overlay. What that will do is add some extra dirt and weathering and wear and tear to the map. So let me remove it so you can see it. You see how kind of flat it kind of seems like everything, it's not much weathering, but when I turn this back on, you'll see there's a lot of weathering there. Now we can turn it off and just bring it up in increments. You can kind of see, or you can change it to repeat instead of stretch. Keep adding, bring the opacity up more. And so you can see there's some real weathering there now using this old paper. Really, really helpful. Now, what the weathering kind of does, though, I've noticed is it kind of does weather out some of the top layer, I've noticed. So we can go ahead and add some more shadowing. I kind of feel like some of it got lost. So let's just go over it again, just to add a final coat, shall we say. There we go. That way we can make sure that the shadows are very, very noticeable. Because at first they kind of don't really show as very noticeable. So this will kind of help with that. There we go. Get some real depth there. Put some along this edge too. There we go. So you can really kind of see the shadows there. I really want to make sure that they stick out. And then the last, oopsie, we'll cancel the save there, is to add a clarity filter. And that will really kind of make it pop out a little bit more. So if I go click this, you'll see that it really pops out more. If I do this, you'll kind of see the difference here. We're almost done. We're going to add one more filter and then we're going to call it good. I'm not going to add any details. The focus on this stream was on depth and how to kind of get those different layers. So we'll do that. And then the last thing that you can do too is I like to do this with almost every single map that I make is that I like to use an adjustment filter. And what this color adjustment does is it allows me to like change the contrast. If I feel like I want it to be a little bit more darker, making the crannies stick out more. If I want it to be a little bit brighter or I want it to be a little bit darker. If I want to really boost the color, boost the saturation, or if I want to just change the color of it. So maybe I want a fey looking castle, or maybe an underwater one, or a green one that shows something in a jungle area, whatever it might be. So always kind of using the color adjustment filter is really, 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 really helpful. So I'll just put everything back to normal so you can kind of see it. But I generally like to bring the contrast up a little bit more. That really brings out the line work. It makes the things pop out more. You can bring that saturation a little up, or you can just completely desaturate it if you prefer it to be stone, black and white. You want it to be printable. You want it to be more printable, then just change the contrast. So that way it's a little bit more printer kind of friendly. So up to you. But just kind of remember these kind of tricks when you're putting together your depth. So that's it. I'm not going to do any bit more, but we'll just quickly review the process. And that is start with your way, move from the highest point moving down, or if you prefer to move your way up, that's up to you. Just know that the highest point, it's going to be the brightest. The brightness is going to be the brightest. And then the further down you go, each level, you'll have to make adjustments to the wall and the fill, or the stroke and the fill, to bring it a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker each way that you go down. And that, again, is using contrast. Contrast to show depth. The other one is to use shadowing. And I can tell you ambient occlusion is fantastic. It's just that hard, dark line along at the base of the shape or the base of the wall or stroke that kind of makes it pop out, right? Otherwise, if that shadowing wasn't there, without that wall segment, without that wall there, it would be hard to tell what is the difference between the upper level and then the level below it. So just remember these secrets: contrast and shadowing. You add these two things and that really, really helps. There's one last thing that I want to also mention. One last thing. And that is to show, if you want to show extreme height, I'm going to type in tree. Sorry, one more thing. Let's go ahead and take trees and put them down here. And so you want to show that below there, it is really high up. If you shrink the trees down quite a bit, and then we'll bring the brightness down a little bit, and you shrink those trees. Let's make sure that this thing is at the right level too. There we go. I think this tree is kind of, there we go, here. Put some here. And you can scale them down quite a bit too. So let's just select all from the set and just bring the brightness down. And then you can also blur them to kind of show that there is a height differential there. That blur really helps to kind of, what happens is that the objects that are blurred will contrast against the shapes that are sharpened or not blurred. So another way to kind of create depth, especially really high up depth, is to blur the things at the very bottom while having the things at the top be within focus. So kind of a neat little trick that you can do. And you can also bring the brightness down. You want to show that they're even further down, further down. They're using that contrast trick. And remember, you can use blur. You can bring the blur up quite a bit if you really want to show that there is a huge difference there. So kind of a nice little trick that you can use there. I'll even take a texture like this, and we're going to adjust it because it's so far down. The texture is going to be pretty low, pretty small. And we'll change the brightness too because it's further down. Let's fill. So you kind of see there's this texture down beneath. It could be a little bit brighter. Let's fill again. There we go. And then just like these things. Oh, wait a minute. My mistake here. Did I actually do the wrong thing here? There we go. Okay. 1 second here. Oops, a top layer. That's the problem. There we go. Don't make that mistake, folks. Fill. There you go. So you kind of have that fill there. I'll bring the brightness up just a little bit more. There we go. Let's fill it. There we go. Okay, so you can kind of see the ground beneath it. And then you can also add in a blur filter. If you want all that stuff below there to be blurred, let's change the height of this layer offset up one so that I don't accidentally blur the wrong thing. Go into here, add in blur, and then just push it to the layer all the way at the bottom. And then that blur will blur everything underneath. So if I put like a log or something down here, it's going to show the log as being blurred. So kind of a nice little trick there. And that's why it's important to use the shape tool, because that way, if it was a texture, then the blur would be on top of the texture, painted texture. The shapes allow you to change the layering so that way you can have everything below those shapes blurred. So you don't have to blur every single individual stamp. You just put stamps below the blur filter, and then that way it does less work. Because if you had selected everything and then click the blur, that's just more work for yourself. So be sure to always give yourself less work and just use a blur filter at a certain layer, layer 4, and then put everything that you want blurred underneath that under layer -5. So layer -4 and then layer -5 for all the stamps underneath it. So another little trick to kind of create depth All right, so nice little trick there. I'll go ahead and save this. All right, everyone, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to do a masterclass stream on Monday. That's going to be in Voice Chat 1 in our Discord server. If you haven't joined our Discord, you totally should. It's a masterclass, so it's going to be for those power users. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing multiple, taking a map and showing multiple seasons. So that's going to be super cool. I'm excited about that. You want to show seasons, you want to show night variation, you want to show a Fae variation, you want to show an undead variation of your map. I'll show you how to use filters, texturing, and all kinds of other things to create multiple variations of your map. And then next Wednesday, I do believe we're going to be creating legends. And we're going to be creating legends with the shape tool. We'll be using the stock legends, all kinds of fun stuff. So it's kind of nice to have a unique and interesting legend to make your world or regional maps pop out. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next Wednesday, or for some of you on Monday during our masterclass Monday. All right, take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.